Daniels got his drive football. Ooh. It's loose and recovered. A huge turnover. And Colorado's in business with a $1:56 left. Looked like Trevor Woods made the hit that popped it loose.
Nice defensive play there by the Colorado defense as they forced the fumble. Buffs didn't get much on offense when they took over. Ended up with a field goal. That was part of a 10-0 run by Colorado that pulled them within 20-10. That's how they went to halftime. But Colorado ends up losing 41-10 to Air Force here in Colorado Springs. Back in the Buffalo Stampede, voice of the Buffs, Mark Johnson, sideline reporter Andy Lindahl. It's a tough one, man. I mean, the way this thing got underway here, young football team has bad mojo early and didn't have much of an opportunity to rebound in this one.
Yeah, and just no momentum. I mean, this team's got to find a way to get some momentum going for itself, especially offensively, and then keep that momentum going. And it didn't happen with a fumble right away, which you take the ball, you try to jump on the Air Force Academy Falcons and maybe get a lead, make them chase the game a little bit. Yep. They didn't make them chase the game the whole afternoon, unfortunately.
Yep. Second week in a row, we're sitting here talking about quarterback play, talking about offense. Last week with Brendan Lewis and even J.T. Shrout, wasn't much happening there. Today, quarterback change. Second verse same as the first, situationally when you look at this one.
Yeah, I was hoping that we'd see something a little bit better. Now, look, J.T. Shrout did make some excellent throws. The receivers at times had trouble holding on to the football. But again, it's not – when you're in the struggles that the Colorado Buffaloes are in right now, it's not just one thing. It's not just one player. The receivers are having a tough time holding on to the football sometimes. He's putting a little too much mustard on the passes at times. Yep. He's throwing back across his body. Yep. They're forcing plays. They're not letting the game come to them. And what really disappointed me was I thought they found some momentum in the run game when they finally went on that touchdown drive. They had a nice couple of cutback runs. They played with some authority, but they only did it for about a quarter. They've got to find a way to put a more complete game together. And you guys mentioned it at the end of the broadcast. The second halves have not been kind. It's got to start there.
Yeah, you look at what happened last week against TCU, and it really got away from Colorado there in the third into the fourth quarter. Same thing in this one. I mean, they scored 0 points in the second half. And as you can just tell, this young team, they can't find that rhythm and have some consistency out there. One of the veterans on this team is offensive lineman Casey Roddick, and we heard from him after the ballgame.
We've dealt with so much adversity. A lot of the seniors on this team have dealt with a lot of adversity. But what just happened in that locker room, the talk that we just had, this cannot happen again. Point blank and simple. This cannot happen again. For myself, from this offensive line, from this defensive line, and everybody else on that field, the taste in your mouth that's left after that's unacceptable. And we know that, and we see that. We see how good we can be, but it's just not being taken onto the field on Saturday. I mean, you guys have been at practice. You see how dominant we can be, but for some reason, it's just not coming over to Saturdays. So it's going to get fixed. And we know that.
There's one of the veteran offensive linemen, Casey Roddick, there after the ballgame. Colorado falls 41-10 to Air Force as we continue with sideline reporter Andy Lindahl. Since we heard from an offensive lineman there, talk about what you saw down there field level from that offensive line. Were they getting any push consistently?
Not like I thought they would. And again, not a clean pocket for J.T. Shrout. This is, again, look, everybody can point to themselves right now in this situation when it comes to reasons as to why this thing is kind of stuck in the mud. There was too much pressure coming on the inside. Shrout did a better job this week of staying in the pocket, not breaking the pocket if he didn't need to. The problem is he did get a clean rusher inside a little too often. I felt there was some struggles at the right tackle position in particular. A rusher coming in way too often there. So the offensive line does have to be better, but guys have to get open in routes more, right? Yep. You had talked a couple of times when the time was there and Shrout got a chance to look downfield. Nobody was winning their one-on-one battles in the secondary in order to get open and give him a good clean pass. He dropped a beautiful pass in to Penry early in the game, and Chase Penry, very sure-handed, he wasn't able to come up with it. I think the weather played a factor there. Just a rough game for the Buffs all around.
Injuries becoming an issue a little bit when you got a young football team, not a lot of veterans out there. Both safeties, Isaiah Lewis out injured. Never got a word exactly what that was. Trevor Woods got ejected for a targeting call. in a game situation defensively where safeties were going to be called upon to make a lot of tackles. That really hurt Colorado. All right, doesn't get easy now. Colorado's got to go into Big Ten, Cody, to face Minnesota next week. We know what the Gophers did last year to the Buffaloes.
Look, you got to put on your big boy pants. And I said this in the post game that this is where you got to get the players together. And I understand Coach is right. This is a very young team. I don't know who stands up and says this is my team. You don't have an upperclassman necessarily right now to do that, but they have to get together and decide what kind of pride they have, because this Minnesota team is no joke. They're going to play you physical, and you got to show up, make this a pride game.
Minnesota has outscored their first two opponents 100-10 combined. So not going to be easy next week. Again, 1:30 Mountain Time kickoff, 11:30 pregame on the Colorado Football Network. Coming up next here in the Stampede, big weekend for volleyball and soccer. We'll tell you about it.